Hi guys, today we are going to talk about the chemical bonding. It's about chapter 6. This lesson we will learn the section 1 is about chemical bonding, and next videos I will upload the other sections for you. Let me explain first. The section 1 is about chemical bonding. Firstly, you have to know what's the chemical bonding definition. The chemical bonding means chemical bond is a mutual electrical attraction between the nuclei and the valence electron of a different atom that binds the atoms together. It means that, guys, as we know, in the atom there are two parts. The first part called nucleus, the other part called electron cloud. And between them there is attraction, as we know. And when the atoms are combined, the nuclei of the one atom attract to the other atom electron. Which electrons? Valence electrons. And they form a bond. We can call that chemical bond. And why the valence attract? Because only the othermost energy levels electrons can share, can lose, or can gain. Because of that, nuclei combine or attract with the other atoms valence electron. So we can call this definition chemical bond is attraction between the nuclei and the valence electron of the different atoms. And also we can continue. What are the types of chemical bonding? Mainly we have two types of chemical bonding. The first one called ionic bonding, the second one called covalent bonding. Before that, I have to explain to you what ion means. Ion means, guys, if atom lose or gain electron, we can call them as ion. If the atom lose electron, it becomes a positive charge, we can call them cation. If the atom gain electron, we can call them negative ion, we can call anion. Mostly the metals tend to lose electrons and it becomes a positive charge, and the non-metals tend to gain electrons, so generally they are anions. These cations and these anions, when they combine, they form ionic bonding. What's the definition? Chemical bonding that results from the electrical attraction between cation and anion called ionic bonding. In the ionic bonding, there must be two different ions, and there must be electron transferring. You remember the ionic compound? Ionic compound means what? Ionic compounds, metals and non-metals combined, they form ionic compound. What does that mean? It means that if a metal lose electron, become positive charge, we can call cation. If the non-metals gain the electron, it become a negative charge, we can call anion. So cation and anion form ionic compound, and the attraction called ionic bonding. Let me give you one example about this: sodium chloride. As we know, sodium, when they lose electron, it become a positive charge, sodium plus, and the chlorine gained the electron, become a chlorine minus. Sodium plus and chlorine minus attract each other, and they form ionic bonding. And opposite of the ionic bonding, we can talk about the covalent bonding. Covalent bonding is result from the sharing of electrons. As I told you, in the ionic bonding, the electrons are transferred from one atom to another atom. There is a transferring of electron. But in the covalent bonding, there is a sharing of electron. It means that the atoms share the electrons and they become a compound, and we can call this attraction covalent bonding. Mostly non-metals form covalent bond. Mostly metals and non-metals form ionic bonding. And how can we understand the bond type? For example, which bonds are ionic, which bonds are covalent? Before that, let me show you some example about the ionic bonding and covalent bonding. After, I will continue how to find ionic or covalent. Ionic bonding, in here as you see, the atom A and atom B, at the beginning they are neutral, but when the electron transfers from the A to B, A become a plus and B become a minus. As you see at the beginning, A atom has larger than B, but at the end, the B is larger than A. Why? What happened? Electron transfer. Because of that, atom lose electron and become positive charge, and the atom gain electron, negative charge. We can call this, for this example, the good example, and it's an example of the sodium chloride. Atom A is called sodium, atom B is called chloride. So what happened there? There is a electron transferring. Very, very important. This part is very important. Electron transfer. And in the covalent bonding, atom C and atom D, they are different, can be different atoms, can be same atoms, but must be mostly non-metals. So two atoms, they are share electrons. So when they share electrons, they attract each other. We can call this attraction is called covalent bonding. And let me continue. How can we understand ionic or covalent? If you know the electronegativity of the elements, you can easily determine the bond between the atoms. Firstly, you have to know this information. This chart gives you information about the types of bonding. In here, 0 to 0.3, 0.1.7, 3.3, these values are important because you have to know these values. How? For example, electronegativity difference. Did you remember chapter 5 electronegativities? Every atom has a different electronegativities. So if you check, for example, you have a sodium and chloride or hydrogen and oxygen, it doesn't matter. You can check, you can take the difference of the atom electronegativities, you can get the value. That value always will be positive. It means that you can get the absolute subtraction. Always it forms a positive value, the difference of the electronegativity of the atoms. You can get the value, check the value. If your electronegativity difference of the atoms, if smaller than 0.3, it means 0 or 0.3, we can say nonpolar covalent bond. I will explain also nonpolar, polar next slide, but let me give you an example about the how to find the ionic or covalent bonding. So if your value difference is 0.2 to 1.7 in this value, we can say polar covalent. So until 1.7 is covalent, 0.3 nonpolar covalent, 0.3 to 1.7 is a polar covalent. If your electronegativity difference is bigger than 1.7, we can call this type of bonding ionic bonding. There is one example, electronegativity difference between fluorine and cesium. It says that what is the type of bonding between the fluorine and cesium. If you check the chart, also in the exam I will give you the chart, fluorine negativity is 4 and the cesium electronegativity is 0.7. What's the difference? That I told you before, please, it must be absolute subtraction. Maybe it can be 0.7 minus 4, it doesn't matter. The value always will be positive. So, the value is what? 3.3. It means that 3.3 is what? Ionic. It means that fluorine and cesium make ionic bonding. Also, at the end of the lesson, I will do more example and you will understand. Let me continue with that one. As you see, this is the chart. Also, chapter 5 we learn. Each of the red colors gives information about the electronegativity of the element. The highest, most electronegative element is fluorine, and the lowest one is francium or cesium. We can say that. So let me continue. What is the nonpolar? What does the polar means? What is the nonpolar covalent bond? What is the polar covalent bond? As we know, yes, nonpolar covalent bond means the electron difference is lower than 0.7. What was the definition? The covalent bond in which the bonding electrons are shared equally by the bonded atoms, resulting in a balanced distribution of electrical charge. It means that the atoms, if the atoms' electronegativities are close, it means nearly the same or the difference is lower than 0.3, these type of bonds called covalent bond, nonpolar covalent bond. Yeah, they are sharing, they are attracting equally, so it forms a nonpolar covalent bond. And what about polar? Polar means, guys, they have an uneven distribution of charge. It means that if polar means if you have two atoms, one of them is for example, high electronegative and the other one is low electronegative. So how can we compare them? If two of them are in the same compound, we can talk this type of compound polar substance or not. Because of that, we can say uneven distribution. In the nonpolar, we have a even or equal distribution, but in the polar, it means uneven or unequally distribution of charge. They are not attract each other equally in the polar. So you can easily understand by there, or you can check the electronegativity of the atoms. In here also covalent bond that I told you, covalent bond in which the bonded atoms have an unequal attraction. It means that one of them can be bigger, one of them is smaller, and difference must be bigger than 0.3. There's a figure for your understanding what are the difference of the nonpolar and polar. As you see in here, the distribution are equally. Why? Because the electronegative difference will be 0. Maybe if they both of them are hydrogen, the equation the difference is 0. So it means that this is nonpolar covalent bond. Why? Because the attraction of each atom have same. So we can call this nonpolar covalent bond. But if you have two atoms and one atom has more than the other one electronegative, so we can say polarity. So it means that polar covalent bond. One of them is, for example, more electronegative, the other one is less. But the difference is not bigger than 1.7. With both of them, the covalent bonding, the difference must be lower than 1.7. If we bigger than 1.7, we will talk about the ionic bonding. So, and it means that partially positive, partially negative. As we know, covalent bonding, we are not talking about the transferring, so there is no ion in there. What's happening? Mostly, one atom will be positive, partially positive, one atom partially negative. Depends on the using the electron. And in here, there's an example for your understanding. In the example, also, I will give you these type of example, and you can solve it. Write a type of chemical bond between following elements according to the electronegative differences. Electronegative difference: chlorine is 3.0, calcium 1.0, oxygen is 3.5, bromine is 2.8. In the exam also I will give you all these information and I will ask you the types of bonding between them. For example, between the chlorine and calcium, what's the type of bonding? Very easy. The rule says that you can check the electronegative difference. What's the chlorine? Chlorine is 3.0. And what's the calcium? 1.0. What's the difference? 2.0. So 2.0 is bigger than 1.7. So we can talk about this bonding is ionic bonding because it's bigger than 1.7. What about chlorine and oxygen? In here, chlorine is 3.0 and oxygen is 3.5. If you subtract, it's absolute subtraction, so it will be 0.5. 0.5 is bigger than 0.3, so it will be polar covalent bond. So this bond called polar covalent bond. What about non-polar covalent bond? In here, chlorine is 0.0 and the bromine is 2.8. The difference is very low. It means lower than 0.3, so we can call it about non-polar covalent bond. So between the chlorine and bromine, the bond is called non-polar covalent bond. What about the bromine and calcium? In here, bromine 2.8 and calcium 1.0. It's also bigger than 1.8. We can talk about also, it's about ionic bond because between the bromine and calcium, difference is 1.8, bigger than that one. So guys, until here, if you have any question, I will do this week or next week in a Zoom meeting. In there, you can ask me, or team meeting. You can ask me there your questions and I will answer your questions. There won't be online lessons. In online meetings, I will explain to you this again and I will take your questions and I will answer them. Take care. See you.